The real identity of the unfortunate soul that was the man in the iron mask has been a very controversial topic among historians, but not so much in our pop culture. Us regular folk, we more than happily accepted something that was born out of films. Technically, just one film, and we'll get to this later. But overall, I'd say there has been three most notable attempts to put this fascinating story to screen, the latest one being of 1998, and then there has been this kind of unnatural silence. I mean, it's not a secret anymore that for more than a decade, Hollywood has been making a living of sequels and remakes, basically squeezing any possible juices from any IP imaginable. So, what's wrong with The Man in the Iron Mask? What, it's not good enough? How come this one is not getting any bids? In order to answer this question objectively, let's just take a very brief look at the real history here. During the reign of Louis XIV, an anonymous prisoner is held for 34 years while changing 4 prisons and then eventually dying in the Bastille in 1703. Of course, there are some documents here and there that this person was this guy or that guy, including even a simple valet who was imprisoned for what he was employed to do and what he knew. And there is some evidence that the man actually didn't wear an iron mask, that he wore a mask of black velvet. But what's important for us today is that in 1738, a French writer and philosopher, Voltaire, suggests that the prisoner was the illegitimate older brother of Louis XIV, possibly his twin, and mentions the Iron Mask. Then, a century later, another French writer and poet, Victor Hugo, riffs on those theories in his 1839 essay. And then, just a year later, Alexandre Dumas himself publishes his understanding and review of those theories. And then a few years passes, and as a true artist, he borrows those ideas, improves on them, and finally solidifies this entertaining concept of twins in our literature. So eventually, when Hollywood becomes a thing, they hired this really good screenwriter George Bruce in 1939 and asked him to turn this particular Dumas novel into a movie. And trust me, I don't think it's an easy thing to do. I have the novel right there, all 3 of them. And not because I love it, because it just looks okay in the shot. It's very hard to digest, I find, and never mind, I can't even imagine getting a proper movie script out of it. But Bruce not only does it, I think he actually improves on the book. It's a good film. It has a proper storytelling right from the get-go, far superior to 1998, I think, by the way, except it doesn't focus on musketeers, but creates the main conflict around the royal twin brothers and around the 2 other very important statesmen of the time, Colbert and Fouquet. And reference for those who haven't read the book, those 2, their positions and their relationship kind of remind me the ones from Game of Thrones, Littlefinger and Lord Varys, except in the film, their invisible fight is taken to a next level and is very, very fascinating to watch. And both actors did a great job portraying those characters. And despite all the quirky fighting choreography and maybe at times some odd humor, I think they did such a good job that you think that this is the story. And guess what? Every other movie that followed is basically a remake of 1939, just with a different guy.
So they all keep remaking the first movie.
Right.
Because that's the story they want to tell, because that's now the story.
Let's talk about 1998. I totally support the idea of writer-director Randall Wallace trying to improve on anything done before him and presenting us with his version of the story. I went to see it in the theaters when it came out. I even bought a Blu-ray. But now, unfortunately, I can't unsee that it's still a version of 1939 with some elements borrowed, even the unpractical ones. The acting here is obviously more modern, and of course there is better quality cinematics, but at the core, there's only 2 differences between the 2 films. And first, the story of 1998 is basically inverted. What was the fact of a setup in 1939 now is a slow reveal or a mystery box. And second, Wallace completely scraps the characters of Colbert and Fouquet, and instead of that shifts the focus on the Four Musketeers and their plan to execute the switch between Louis XIV and his brother Philip. So basically it becomes a heist film. A noble attempt. I mean, we love those four, and I think it's the most bearable portrayal of the elite rascals, especially considering that they are older in this one. And I think the shift of focus actually works, because their friendship, camaraderie, and unbendable sense of honor are very compelling to watch. But Wallace decides to be inventive and get closer to the source material just by adding, as he thought, one important name to the script. And I'm not talking about Leonardo DiCaprio, of course, we'll get to him shortly. I'm talking about Raoul, aka Vicomte de Bragelonne himself, except in the film his character is absolutely a joke. It's useless. It only exists to drive Athos into a rage, give him some motivations to participate in the King's Switch, and basically give him this future father amplua for Philip. I mean, that's just another proof that this particular Dumas novel doesn't have this quick and easy adaptation fix. And I think the only reason why everybody is still talking quite a lot about 1998 one is the young and talented Leonardo DiCaprio, who was absolutely fantastic in playing both royal brothers, especially I think the self-centered and arrogant King Louis XIV. You just love to hate that guy. His Philip was a bit weaker for me, and I personally prefer the 1939 version of his personality when he goes like, hell yeah,
take me where the crown of France is to be found.
But then again, this kind of bravado was well set up from the get-go. Just to be clear, I'm not trashing 1998 version. I think Randall Wallace did a great job. He didn't cheap out on his actors or fantastic locations like Chateau de Vaux de Vicomte or Royal Chateau of Fontainebleau, even the Notre Dame Cathedral. And I think it's still a pretty good period piece that we're better off having in our lives rather than not. As I said before, the trilogy is very convoluted, so no one in their right mind wants to pick up the book and remake it once again. It's already been done for them in the best way possible. And trying to riff on something that is already a perfect version of a popular literature piece rooted in theory that is based on a legend that in turn is based on very few and scattered documents, I think it's a recipe for disaster. What do you think? I think it cannot be topped. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. And if you have one of those, post your theory on who do you think was the unfortunate man in the Iron Mask. Thank you so much again for listening. Until the next one.